POVs. And when we speak about AI in the room, why does everybody only think about losing jobs? How about the jobs we are going to gain? AI won't take your job. It is the person who has learned AI that will take your job. Now, what I'd say is that, for instance, if you're a VFX artist, if you're a photographer, if you're a motion designer, add AI to your learning, add it to your skill sets. That means that there is a new set of skills, a new set of opportunities that AI is creating. How are creatives positioning themselves to take those jobs? How are creatives putting themselves in a position where they can actually learn, and rather than get panicky about losing their jobs, to get and learn a new skill set? So I think this calls for a mind shift reorientation that AI is adding to your skill. Because I mean, how many people do you personally know have lost their jobs to AI? Now, one of the challenges is that it's about barrier to entry. Filmmaking, content creation is actually expensive. What AI provides is the ability for you to either do something called a proof of concept, to try out an idea that you've had, or an idea you want to execute.
Good afternoon, Mr. Nelson, and our guest, Mr. Obinna Okerekeocha, the founder of Naija Artificial Intelligence Film Festival, NAIF. My name is Adewuyi Omotola, and you are welcome to Tech Polypsa. Together, I have here with me, Nelson, can you kindly introduce yourself?
My name is Nelson Saju. I'm a writer and reporter for techpolyp.com.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Once again, you're welcome, Mr. Okerekeocha. Just like I mentioned the other time, my name is Adewuyi Omotola, and this is Tech Polyp. Tech Polyp focuses on bringing out startup owners in Nigeria, Africa, and also extending beyond the boundaries of Africa. What we majorly do is that we report tech news, tech updates, product releases, and anything tech right from home, that's Nigeria, and expanding through the world. This is what we do. Mr. Obinna, sir, can we meet you in a split second, sir?
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so my name is Obinna Okerekeocha, and I think for the intents and purposes of this interview, the founder of the Naija AI Film Festival, also an artist, filmmaker, film producer, executive producer. I've worked in advertising, I've worked in philanthropy, I've worked in content development, I've worked in content aggregation, I've worked for financial institutions working within the marketing department and just helping to build brands. So I like to describe myself as a creative and somebody who has worked in media for the last over almost 3 decades now. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, we are indeed pleased to have you, Mr. Obinna Okerekeocha. I believe with this, for somebody who has worked for close to 3 decades, you actually are a veteran in this field, and we are hoping you tell us more about how you've been able to, merge artificial intelligence with media as a feed moving forward. So based on our research at Tech Polyp, we discovered that, and that's also a fact, that many generative AI are trained on Western datasets and which risk misrepresentation, particularly about African stories. So how can African developers build AI systems that truly reflect local cultures, languages, and also perspectives?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like we all know, a lot of all the predominant models, large language models, are essentially built on Western data sets, whether it's text, whether it's publications, whether it's visual content, whatever it is. It's all trained, with hours and hours and hours and terabytes of information. And I think for us over here in Africa, it's really around being intentional about trying to build our own models. And again, the challenge with that is that it's not impossible. It's just that it's very tasking and it takes the will. So for instance, you need to source the data, right? So where's the data? Where does the data sit? And the kind of data we're talking about is published material, whether it is written text, journals, magazines, books, whatever it is, textbooks, whatever it is, or recorded video content, whether it's or recorded, media content, whether it is video, whether it's audio, you have to essentially take this model, tag the assets. It takes a lot. So one of the challenges we have here is that we have a lot of data, but we don't have, data that is properly arranged or properly, put in a place where that is easily accessible. Where we have so much data everywhere, but we don't have it in such a way that we don't have it in a manner that it's readily usable by a model or by, to train models, that kind of thing. Because it's one thing to have the raw materials for data, but it's another thing to put them in one place, and make them accessible, because there's a whole lot that has to go with you. You assemble the data, you have to tag the data, you have to make it available. Now, the challenge is that where do you even find the data? Because you need so much to train the data. And because we don't have a lot of that, we're in a situation where we find ourselves using, whatever it is that the West has provided. But interestingly, I can say that, like, at our festival, we had something called Tools Tech and Tools Talent and Tech, where we actually showcase live instances of where Nigerians have built LLMs and models that are essentially, Nigerian built. So like we have one of them called AI Studio NG, that essentially where you can actually create generative images, videos, fashion assets and stuff like that. And what's interesting is that they've used APIs from a lot of all these predominant models at the back end that you can pay, in Naira, that kind of thing. And then there's one that was built called Speech that focuses on text to audio. You impute text using local Nigerian languages and accents. So which is really interesting. I think I should also mention here that it's a very, very expensive venture, because first of all, you need to have data sets, you build the data sets, and then you have to have data centers. Now, data centers are very, very, very expensive because they have to be water cooled. You have to have very high performing GPUs, like ones NVIDIA build, and you have to have it on a vast expanse of land. So we don't have data centers, and it's one of the challenges that we have. I know that MTN is about to launch one. I know that the federal government is planning to, build data centers. Now, data centers is where all of all these models will house their data. And that's where we act, because, anytime anybody's prompting ChatGPT, Claude, Google DeepMind, Gemini, that information, that prompt you're sending is triggering some database somewhere, either in Europe or in America. So that is the kind of infrastructure that we need to, number one, build and train our own models, and also to house the information.
What does generative AI, modern generative AI, what can it offer? In what way are you trying to persuade both old and budding filmmakers to adopt generative AI? What features do they have? What can they help you with?
Okay.
Is it a special effects? Is it can they generate human characters? And what other features can we see? So, just sort of entice the viewers and let them know why they should adopt generative AI.
So Murtala Adewoye, at some point you may have tried to shoot videos, professional videos, or even make a film, correct? Or documentary. At least you must have done one of the three, correct? You must have tried to either make a film, a short film, shoot a documentary, or create content. Now, what was the major challenge you had in trying to execute those projects? The number one, just mention one thing.
Okay, sometimes the thing is not properly represented.
Okay, let me help you. One of the challenges you had, especially if you're trying to make a film, was that you needed the financing to bring together a crew, to rent equipment and all that stuff, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Now, one of the challenges is that it's about barrier to entry. Filmmaking, content creation is actually expensive. What AI provides is the ability for you to either do something called a proof of concept, to try out an idea that you've had, or an idea you want to execute. For instance, somebody who is living in a village but in a suburb somewhere, has internet, has a laptop, and has access to these tools, can easily tell a story he's always wanted to tell. He doesn't need to put together a crew. He doesn't need to spend money trying to rent expensive equipment. Just by prompting his idea, he can bring an idea to life. Now, you can ask, so what does that do? If the guy is trying to raise money for a film, he can do what we call a proof of concept. He can bring an idea to life, something called a sizzle reel, and he can create that with AI and then use that creation to go and look for funding to make a film. Now, another way that people use generative AI is that somebody is trying to create something called a storyboard for a TV commercial or a film without having the tools, or rather the ability to physically draw. He can actually put together a concept for what he's trying to develop. And that saves him hours of time. He would have been able to put together his concept or ideas. Now, let's also talk about things like VFX, visual effects. I mean, we see that a lot in modern filmmaking where, you know, a house collapses, it's not a real house and stuff like that. Now, there are tools today that are made by companies called Runway, LTX, you know, Lumen Studios, where you can actually do very, very, very well-crafted VFX that cost less than $10 a month. Now, look at that massive jump where if you are going to spend, you know, spend money to do Hollywood grade VFX, you spend thousands and thousands of dollars. So there's the democratization, there's the empowerment given to filmmakers to do things they were never able to do, especially when it comes to either pre-production, production, or post-production.
All right, thank you, Mr. Obinna Okerekeocha. The other time we were talking about using generative AI to come up with, you know, like you just have to prompt the generative AI to come up with, to fine-tune your ideas and also come up with, you know, content that can eventually be worked on. So that leads us to the next question, which is, you know, generative AI, it actually raises a lot of concerns, I mean, ethical concerns around copywriting, around copyright rather, consent and deep fakes. All right. So what frameworks or standards have you been complying with, or do you think African filmmakers can further comply with to adopt and also ensure that, you know, they produce responsible and also make use of fair AI use in their film production?
That's a very, very important question. So first of all, we have a community of over 450 AI enthusiast filmmakers and creators. And when we have our sessions, whether it's a hangout or what we call our AI Academy, we say to them that you have the opportunity to train your model, you know, whether it's Midjourney, whatever it's Runway, to actually develop your own style. Because we know that a lot of all these, you know, some of the styles that you may be able to create with the model might not necessarily be something that's proprietary yours. And, you know, there are question marks around how it's been sourced and how those techniques and styles has been sourced. So what we say is create your own style. What is, and we say to creators, it is your style that makes you unique. So create your own style, get the model to focus on how you would create your own characters, your own type of lighting, your own types of form, your own types of, you know, essentially how you render your own output, that kind of thing. Now, once you do that, your model starts to understand how you want to prompt, how you want to create your own style and focus on that. I think there's something called mood boards, like in Midjourney, for instance. You can create hundreds of mood boards that speak specifically to your style and then use that in your creations. You get that way, your model is essentially creating what you tell it to create in your own style. That way, you know that you are not infringing on anybody's style. You're not infringing on anybody's body of work. You are focusing on what it is that it is, you know, you're focused on your own style and telling the model exactly how you want it to react. And that's what we you know, that's essentially what we tell, you know, our creators in our community. So that way, you know, you're not infringing anybody. And again, for instance, like there's a legal battle going on with Disney and Midjourney where people can actually type in a particular Disney character and it creates it for them. And for instance, Shrek, you know, because it's been trained on it. So those are the kind of gray areas that we try to avoid. So focus on your style, focus on, you know, your own particular style and get your model to focus on that and then output that. That's the way you sort of navigate those waters. Because the truth about it is that from the very origins, the truth is that a lot of all these models, you know, have questionable origins in terms of how all these models were, including ChatGPT, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, so what we say, if you're trying to navigate that, you need to train your own model. So yeah.
All right, thank you for that brilliant answer, sir.
Mr. Obinna,
yes,
your name of your entity suggests it's a festival. What time of the year do you celebrate your festivities? What way do you mark it? Which city?
Okay, so how do I mark it? So I mean, this is literally year one for us.
Okay.
We have the I can share all of the assets and all the post-event material with you, so you can see videos, pictures, you know, write-ups, etc. So we had the first edition on the 13th of September at the Alliance Francaise Mike Adenega Center Eko in Lagos. It was well attended. We had well over 300-400 delegates because we had about 4 events in one day. Started at 9 a.m. and ended at 10 p.m. at night. It was great. We started with AI showcase of films from all across. We had a showcase of AI films from all across the globe. It lasted about 3 hours. And then the first panel session we had was what we call the Code of Creation, the ethical use of AI. It was a robust panel. We had people from Meta, from Washington, D.C. We had people from the, international intellectual property summit organization. We had lawyers. We had, proper legal people and creative technologies on the panel. And we had another panel that involved people who had built things, because for me, as a creative person, talking is not won't just suffice. You need to show people how the technology works. So we had a live AI demo session where we showcased AI Studio NG, built by one of our faculty members in our community. We had Speech, also built by somebody, a friend of our community as well, and we demoed. And we also had another fantastic demo session about creating 3D assets with AI. And then we had Malik, the great Malik Afebua, who created the Elder series, talk about his journey as a creative and showcase his body of work. So it was really, really, really exciting. And we intend to build more on that in the next edition. And then we had our awards night in the evening. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be an annual event going forward. We intend to start early next year. It's going to be around the same month, in the month of September. But we're going to start early to make the call for announcements and then getting more partners to really come along with this journey with us. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Nelson. Thank you, Mr. Obinna Okerekeocha. Yeah, I want to digress a little bit from the question recently asked by my colleague. But this digression is, we are going back to AI, that's artificial intelligence. The other time in your address, you mentioned that AI, generative AI rather reduces production costs. I want to be sure I'm correct, right?
Yeah. It can really help you reduce production costs, correct.
But my concern is that AI is further adopted. I believe it runs on a parallel line with displacing jobs, all right? How do you see a balance between embracing efficiency and protecting human creativity moving forward, sir?
Yeah, that's a very brilliant question. How I answer that question is I always draw parallels like you have. And my parallel is this, or my POVs. And when we speak about AI in the room, why does everybody only think about losing jobs? How about the jobs we're going to gain? How about the other side of the flip side of that coin? So what I tell people is that AI won't take your job. It is the person who has learned AI that will take your job. Now, what I'd say is that, for instance, if you're a VFX artist, if you're a photographer, if you're a motion designer, add AI to your learning, add it to your skill sets so that you have an added advantage. Now, if you go on LinkedIn and you're looking for jobs within the creative space, you will now see things like AI art director, AI manager, AI creative technology. So that means that there is a new set of skills, a new set of opportunities that AI is creating. How are creatives positioning themselves to take those jobs? How are creatives putting themselves in a position where they can actually learn, and rather than get panicky about losing their jobs, to get and learn a new skill set? So I think this calls for a mind shift reorientation that AI is adding to your skill. Because I mean, how many people do you personally know have lost their jobs to AI? Let's be real. I mean, and what I tell people is that AI will replace. Sorry?
I said I know a few people who have lost their jobs because of AI.
What exactly? Okay, and let's do a deep dive. What did they do and what jobs did they lose? Let's talk about that for real.
It's a banking job.
So exactly. So what exactly? Because I really want to know, because people say these things. What exactly and what jobs did they lose? When you now dig deeper, you find out that these people refuse to reinvent themselves, refuse to move with the times. Because let me tell you something, if you can prompt, if you have the basic knowledge of even building AI tools, you become very valuable to your company. I want you to take that to the bank. It's people who are not really, but I tell you something anyway, there are things that are monotonous, will I say, that trample on human efficiency that we need to get rid of so that the human being can focus on being productive and being creative. Like, for instance, I mean, if there was a way to automate what a teller does, a human being doesn't keep doing that job. You get my point? A machine can automate that. And so that upskilling the human being to do creative things and solve bigger problems. So I think that we need to start thinking like we're not in the third world. How do you use AI to improve your productivity, to make you more efficient? And I think that's the world we're going to. We're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. We're talking about Web3. How are you using the technologies available to make yourself better? That's what we're talking about. That is what and it's not about creativity. It's not about filmmaking. It's about every sphere of life. Whether you're in accounting, whether you're a writer, whether you are a engineer, whatever it is. How are you harnessing technology to better what you do? That is the conversation. Because I tell you what, there are people who have just spent 6 months learning AI, at whatever level, and they are getting some of the biggest jobs. Anybody who knows how to prompt right now will eat fat. This is a fact. This is not even a joke. So my answer to this question, rather than spending a lot of time, is do not be afraid for losing your job. AI has not necessarily come to replace, has come to enhance human efficiency, but human beings need to understand how to use the best of AI. That is how we get ahead. Thank you.
All right, that was a wonderful response. I, as a kind of, I mean, in a bit to recap, or by way of recapping, you just mentioned that we should stop thinking about jobs that could be lost in the course of adopting AI, but rather jobs that could be created. And I really hope, yes, this stands as what my people call REMA. Because move forward.
Does your entity have its independent tool, digital tool out, or you are for now relying on tools from other companies?
Yeah, great question. So at the moment, it's a mixture of both. I said to you that we have somebody in our community who's created a Nigerian who's built an LLM, that is made here. So what we do, we encourage our guys in our community to use the tool, but we're also reliant on Western tools, obviously, because there's certain things you want to do. We don't have the local capacity to do them. So for instance, for runway references, there are tools like Hicksfield, a bunch of tools that are still essentially Western. But what we've said is that for AI Studio NG, let's use that because you can pay in Naira. At least you're providing jobs for somebody somewhere who's exactly. So that's really, and then the speech, which is text to speech, also built by a Nigerian company as well. So we encourage our community members to use these Nigerian tools, Nigerian-made AI tools.
When I read the story of your entity, it said that you adhere to regulations and also that you adhere to ethical and fair use of AI, and that also you do not hold back when it comes to attribution for works which you used, for your film production. So how do you adhere? What kind of things do you practice? Do you compensate authors, when you use their items, when you use their work?
Yeah. So again, so basically everything that we do or any generation that is done by anybody in our community, we strongly advise our community members or creators not use the likeness of anybody, especially people in power. Like, like for instance, you see that, what is happening in social media is that there's a lot of misuse of AI. Like people you faces the likeness, deep fakes of the president, of people political people like Peter Obi, like, and things like that. I strongly say we can't do that because that's infringement. You cannot use the likeness of another person. So what we do is we preach ethical and fair use of AI because you cannot use the likeness of anybody in public space or anybody who just a private entity, a private individual. You can't because it's actually you are infringing on their rights. You can't do that, So, and then like I've said, when the question was asked around how do we make sure that I just got the sanctity of how we use the AI is, again, train your model, produce your own style, try to be original. So what we preach is originality with it. Try to create what has not been created. That way you are authentic, you're not infringing on anybody's rights, you're not using anything that doesn't belong to you. And I think the good thing about AI is that, you're not using anybody's video. So you are creating something completely from scratch. You are creating a new prompt. The only difference is that we are saying do not, and these days, in fact, some of the models are becoming more intuitive. Like for instance, Google VO from Google DeepMind will tell you that you cannot use this image because you do not have rights for it. So it will stop you from even creating it. So there are already checks and balances in place to actually check all these things, that kind of thing. So for us, I mean, there's only so much you can do, but for what we preach in Naija, at the Naija AI Film Festival community, is that you cannot create the likeness of anybody, especially anybody who you have not, gone into some sort of agreement with. And that even cuts across voice cloning, because there are apps now that can clone your voice. So that also involves that you cannot clone anybody's voice without consent and without an agreement. So these are ways that we mitigate against things like this. There's only, like I said, there's only much we can do, but within the community that we have, the focus has always been create originality, do not infringe on anybody's work, and make sure that you are not using anybody's likeness and anybody's likeness or their voice or whatever it is that they look like in your creation. So this is essentially how we safeguard, and make sure that everybody's adhering and focusing and imbibing the fair and ethical use of AI.
Thank you, Mr. Obinna Okerekeocha. Yes, let me ask you this, and then we call it a moment. I'm just wondering, is there any possibility, or are there any possibilities that Nigeria Artificial Intelligence Film Festival or any other AI-driven African films can transition from festivals only and also move into mainstream global distribution channels, and also while maintaining authenticity, and cultural depth?
Yeah, that's a great question, because in creating a festival, what happens is that over time you now have a lot of content, correct? Because all the submissions become content and they're warehoused somewhere, correct? So one of the things we want to do is to start a distribution channel for AI films made in Africa. So one of the things we're trying to launch very, very soon, is to start our own streaming platform where we'll showcase our films from our festival. So yes, I have some partners in France and in the UK who have actually started this, where they have distribution platforms for their AI films, and we showcase some of their work, during our festival. So what we want to do is to start ours where you can watch the best of AI films from Africa. So yes, and then the whole point is that after a while, we want to start a distribution system where, because we know that people are beginning to embrace AI content. It's happening. At some point, people start to watch AI-created series, AI-created feature films, short films. And then we want to get to a point where we can actually start to pay for subscription and then empower the creator so that they can earn some money for their creation. So that's sort of like a long-term plan. But so the answer to your question is yes. But then again, in keeping to it as African, so keeping our nuance, our language, keeping true to it, to what makes us essentially African. So, so we want to create that platform where you can watch AI films that are created in Africa by Africans, for Africans and for the rest of the world. Yeah.
That's a very brilliant one. And I wish you the very best in your future endeavors, Mr. Obinna Okerekeocha.
Thank you, Adeoye. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right. Once again, thank you for joining us at Tech Poly. We are indeed pleased to have you, and it's been an exciting moment with you over the past 35 minutes. We hope that when next we come knocking for future discussions like these interviews, you would open the door for us.
No problem. So if you need just to help your article, if you need photographs, if you need any sort of links to resources, just let me know and I'll share with you on LinkedIn. No problem.
All right, very well. We'll reach out, definitely. We'll reach out. All right. We are indeed good, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
Enjoy the rest of your Independence Day. Bye, guys.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Bye.